Alright everybody, welcome back. It's your pal Revolver84 here, and today we're going to cover Skyshards and Skillpoints in our series ESO for beginners. So the reason I'm covering both at the same time in the same video is because there is a relationship between the two, and it would just be easier just to run through them both at the same time. So let's get cracking then. So first things first, what is a sky shard? So a sky shard is those weird sort of crystal type things that you might see coming up out of the ground. There's usually like a big one surrounded by a couple of little ones, and the coloured sort of like a golden white, but they'll stick out the most, not because of what they look like in comparison to things on the ground, but because of a huge beaming white light that will shine from the top of it, vertical, all the way up, as far as you can see up. It's a pretty important thing, and whenever you see one, you should always make a point of always going and finding it. Sometimes I have seen them in quite awkward places, but it's worth it. Trust us, don't just see it and think I can't get to it and walk off and leave it. You always need to get them. So what are they? So sky shards are things that contribute towards getting yourself skill points. So sky shards are located throughout Tamriel, and they're spread out through a few different places throughout all the different zones. You can see them out in the open world, but most commonly you get to see them in public dungeons or in delves. And these are the symbols you want to be looking for on your map. So one of the things that quite often gets confusing is the difference between public dungeons and group instances. So a delve obviously is a delve, and that's fairly straightforward, but a group dungeon isn't in the world, and it's certainly at early stages in your ESO life. You want to be going in there in a group, but that's not the same as a group instance, which is your actual dungeons, your traditional dungeons that you go on your activity finder for, and you complete pledges for and such like, and you have various stages of normal and veteran level dungeons. Your group dungeons are something entirely different, and it's basically just a big delve with a couple of bosses in it, but it's designed for group play. You can do them solo, easily do them solo. I'd do all mine solo, but not until later on when you're a bit more experienced and you've got a fair bit of leveling behind you. Now there will always be at least one sky shard in these locations, always one, and you'll tend to find that they won't necessarily be in your direct line of path to completing that delve or dungeon. So for example, you might go into a delve where there might be the road might splinter off into 2 or perhaps even 3 paths to get through to the back of the dungeon, the back of the delve to the boss, and you can usually sort of get a sixth sense as to where it'll be, because generally speaking the boss is in the biggest room furthest away from wherever the entrance is. That's generally the rule. But you'll also find sort of like little antechambers sometimes in the delves that aren't necessarily on the direct path to it. They're the ones that will have the sky shards in, so always make a point of not necessarily going straight to where they think the boss would be, but exploring the entire delve. One thing's for certain, you should not be coming out of a public dungeon or a delve without at least finding the sky shard. I mean, alright, you can come out without completing the delve itself or the boss or whatever, because it's too difficult, but always make sure you pick up the sky shard in there. But also as well, they are found in open world, so they can be found pretty much anywhere when you're out there exploring Tamriel. You get an idea as to how many there are in each area by looking at your journal and your achievements in there. It'll list which ones you've got and which ones you haven't got. They can be found all over the place. They can be found as obvious as right in the middle of a main town on a balcony, which was probably the most obvious one, but the most awkward to get I've seen. And ones that are like sort of high up in mountains that you may have to find a particular path to get up to and such like, but again, you can see where they are because of the beaming white light that flies out from them. Always make bylines straight towards them, even if you're on a quest or whatever. Always make sure you go and pick them up. Very important. So you're probably sitting there thinking, how a Revolver man, stop reiterating the fact that you need them and tell me why. Do you know what I mean? What's so important about these damn sky shards? They're not involved in any quests whatsoever. You're never sent out to actually find them as part of any quest, so why are they so important? Why? For every 3 sky shards you get, however you get them, you'll accumulate 1 skill point. A skill point, I'll come on to exactly what they're for in a moment, but for every 3 sky shards you get 1 skill point. Now skill points can also be found by doing main story quest lines in each zone. Generally speaking, there's generally like 3 or 4 skill points just from following the main quest line, which is not enough which is not enough if you want a long-term investment in the game. Alright, you can complete the game, the main storyline I should say, and just use the skill points just that you've just acquired from following the main quest, but you really are missing a sizable portion of the game if you do that. And it'll make things quite difficult for you later on once you go into post-game. So I guess the best thing to do is to show you what a Skyshard looks like, and the there can be only one moment, which is what I call it, from Highlander. You'll get the reference in a second. I'll just get the video up for you. You've all seen the original Highlander, right? You know what I'm getting at. There can be only one! And he flies up at the end of the film after beating the Kurgan. The glass is smashing from behind him. He's got all his light and these weird flying, like, dragony type things flying around him. And he gets empowered by the quickening. Wait, that's sort of what I like to envisage the Skyshard as. So you go on, you get the prompt to say select, you press X, and you get the there can be only one moment. You jump up into the air and you get empowered with one additional Skyshard. And once you get 3 Skyshards, it tells you you've gained 1 skill point. So your next logical question is, what are skill points? So skill points are things that unlock skills your character can use. So you would click on your options button, it brings up your menu on your UI. You would go to skills, and these is all your skill trees here. So these are all the different skill trees that you can go and you can click on any one of them, and these are the skills that you can use. So to be able to use any particular skill, you have to have that skill level unlocked. So for example here I have a skill tree level of 50, which is the highest skill level you can get, and you can go on here and you can see that there's everything on here I can either unlock, morph, which I'll get to in another video, or use, or already using I should say. So each skill within each skill line usually has more than one thing to unlock. So for example, dexterity here within the medium armor tree, you can see it says 2 of 3, so that it would take 3 full skill points to max out that upgrade. You can see in the green there what the next step would be for me. So it would increase your weapon critical rating by 328 for each piece of medium armor equipped. Currently I have 2 of 3. So to get the full benefit of that, I would have to unlock it by pressing X to purchase, and it comes up saying purchase ability, spend 1 skill point to upgrade your dexterity, and you press X to purchase it, and you get confirmation that it's purchased, and it's done. So now I have all 3 of the dexterity skill set, the skill ability there, unlocked. And you've got obviously your different ones for your different types there. Now to be able to progress through them 3 levels, it will depend on your overall tree line score. So you can see my medium armor there is at 33. Depending on where it is will depend on what gets to unlock and what doesn't. So you can see for example here, so you can purchase 1 for skill point there, upgrade for 1 skill point, upgrade 1 skill point there. But when we get down to here, unlocked at medium armor level 38, that means I need a medium armor level of 38 to be able to start putting skill points in that skill set there, sort of agility. It's pretty good when that increases your weapon damage by 6% for 5 or more pieces of medium armor. That's pretty damn good. If you're a DPS, Stam, you've got to choose that one anyway, off track. That's how you progress through your your skill lines. So there's all your different skill lines there, and they're broken down in different areas. So that's your class, depending on what class you chose. That's your preferred different weapon types. So for myself, it is 2-handed if I need to do a lot of damage. It's 1 hand and 1 shield for when I am tanking, which is most of the time. And I have a destruction staff as well, maxed out at 50 as well. And then your armor types, and obviously depending on what armor type you have. So obviously with me being a tank, I'm at 50. Medium armor's 33 and light armor's 26, just because I tend to do 5-2-1, 5-1-1 sometimes. World, these are sort of the things that you get when you're out there in the world. So legends to do with like your thieving and such like, and soul magic. Everyone gets soul magic, and all of them should be unlocked by everybody. Your guilds, so you go through your different guilds there. Lion Sword, that's Cyrodiil. Your racial passives, which is different for every different types of race. I'm a high elf, so my high elf skills there, and there's your crafting, and all them skill lines are all updated by different means. So generally speaking, most of them you improve your skill lines by having something assigned on your skill bar when you level up. So for example, if I had Molten Whip assigned, which I do, which is my L1, and it wasn't maxed out, if every time I get experience, the molten, you see the blue bar there and see it where it says Molten Whip 5, that will move forward every time I get experience until it's maxed out at 4, and until it's maxed out at 4, and that also adds a skill to my Ardent Flame skill ability of 50 there, and that moves along and it unlocks all those things as it progresses. So if you want to get down to the very bottom of your skill line, you've got to pretty much have something on your bar most of the time to progress it all the way along. Now that's not the only way of progressing your skill lines. Now it is the most common for things like your classes and such like, and certainly your weapons and armour, but when you get down to things like Legerdman, for example, that upgrades a little bit differently. So that is based on how many times you will do thieving activity and are successful with it. So by that I mean like things like when you've pickpocketed someone, or when you have picked a lock to break into a house or to open a chest. That progresses that. Soul Magic, that's the same as what I've said earlier, that's when you've got something slotted. Dark Brotherhood, that's to do with when you've assassinated people, when you've used the Blade of War and you've actually killed someone. Fighters Guild, you progress that by killing Deirdre and taking part in Fighters Guild quests and veteran and normal pledges. Mages Guild, this is the most unusual one of them all. So Mages Guild's got nothing to do with selecting any of these and having any of these on your bar. You can see there, I'm a level 8, which is as high as, well, I think it's 10 actually, I think it goes to. But if you notice, I'm at level 8 and I haven't actually unlocked a single thing on there. Now the reason I've done that is because the Mages Guild one progresses by finding lore books out in the world. For every lore book you find, it progresses that. So whenever you see a lore book, which isn't necessarily a book, it could just be a piece of parchment or whatever, always read it and it progresses that along. Thieves Guild is the same as the Legerdman, it's to do with how often you're stealing and such like. Undaunted, it's your Undaunted pledges. Assault and Support, that's your activities in Cyrodiil, but also when you have them assigned. So if you're in Cyrodiil, they progress, but if you have, for example, Retreat and Maneuver, even if you're not in Cyrodiil, assigned on your bar, that progresses it as well. High Elf skill, that progresses, you don't have to have anything assigned for it at all, because there isn't actually any assignable skills. That progresses automatically no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, and that will probably be one of the first one, if not the first one, that you get to max out at 50, your racial passive. Your crafting, they progress by actually doing crafting abilities. So for example, alchemy there, for example, I've managed to max out alchemy to 50, and all I've been doing is crafting alchemy things. So I've been crafting potions, I've been crafting poisons and such like, and you do that enough times, it progresses them along to the max level of 50. All these here are maxed out at 50. Now as you can see, I've got them pretty much all apart from enchanting. Now although I have got them all maxed out, that doesn't necessarily mean I've got all the skill sets. So for clothing, for example, I'm only at 4 out of 10, so I've got a lot to do on clothing, especially for the work I want to do in my house. For my other episodal series that I have running, House for a Home, I've got a few things I need to progress my passive abilities on tailoring so that I can craft some items for my house, but that's a different kettle of fish. Check out that video if you're really interested. So that's it from me for today. I hope you found that beneficial and useful. I hope I have told you a few things you didn't necessarily already know. I dare say you've seen these things already and you might have figured out a little bit about them, but hopefully you've learned things like where you find Skyshards, and like I said, the most common thing is recognising that they are in group delves and group dungeons, the difference between group dungeons and group instances, and for your skill sets, how to progress the individual skill sets themselves, and how to purchase skills using skill points acquired through finding Skyshards. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video. I'll catch you in the next one. All the best.